Hello there. It is Saturday. It's the beginning of our second show here on the Phoenix Club. I'm Josh, joined by Tom once again. Tom, how's it going?
Really good, mate. I'm looking forward to getting into today's theme for the Retro Prem show. Really love the sort of theme of cult heroes, which you guys all voted for. And that's exactly what we're going to do, I think. So who are you going to go for, Josh?
Absolutely. So kicking off really is going to be a United player, of course. So you can see the badge right here. I think that when you think about United, because they have so many legends, certainly in the last 10, 20 years or so, that it's almost difficult to separate legends from cult heroes. But of course, there's always a few that slip through the net. And the one that I'm going for is Diego Forlán, perhaps for obvious reasons. He wasn't the most, I don't want to say talented, because he certainly showed his worth after leaving United, but certainly during his time at Old Trafford, he wasn't the best, should we say. I can't help but feel that United did sign him a bit to spite Middlesbrough, because I know that Fergie had wanted to sell Dwight York to Middlesbrough, but the move didn't quite happen for whatever reason. And so Middlesbrough were also after Diego Forlán at the time. So Fergie decided to sign Forlán as well. So he ended up with Andy Cole, Dwight York, Teddy Sheringham, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and Diego Forlán, and then Cole and York was sold. We then brought in Van Nistelrooy. So Forlán was never really going to be the sole striker in a club with an arsenal of that caliber of striker. But nevertheless, he still gave us some brilliant moments, not exactly performances, but moments. I mean, let's not forget when we played Liverpool and he scored the brace to beat them in that 2-1 victory, including that howler from Jersey Dudek. But even then, it took him 8 months to score his first United goal, I believe in the Champions League, and then a month later, so 9 months, to score his first Premier League goal for United. 63 Premier League games, 10 goals. 98 United games, 17 goals. He still won the Premier League and the FA Cup with United, but even though after a rather mediocre spell at Old Trafford, 2.5 seasons roughly, the fact that the fans still chant his name, primarily I'd probably argue for that brace against Liverpool, probably suggests that he is a top draw cult hero.
Well, in Mates Morata, his record, Mates Morata's look good at my club, but
not saying much, is it really?
But the fact is, like, as you say, if your fans still love him despite that record, and the fact that he beat Liverpool in that way, he has to be known as a cult hero. And, you know, he went on out of the Prem to Atletico Madrid, won a couple of Europa Leagues, I think 2, maybe 3, did well for Uruguay, 2010 World Cup. And for some reason, everywhere he went, he was never unpopular, because you could see he put in his all. And, you know, United, he probably wasn't the luckiest with the players you had, but really, really top player.
I think the time was right for him to leave Old Trafford when he decided to get those cornrows as his new hairstyle in 2004. But anyway, enough about hair. Tom, who's your first pick?
So I can't believe I'm doing this wearing a Chelsea shirt. And it was hard because Chelsea have had maybe a few cult heroes, but the first one that really jumped out of my head, particularly when going retro, is an ex-Tottenham player, and his name is Jurgen Klinsmann. Fantastic striker back in the day. Obviously had 2 spells at Tottenham. Was really potent in both, but obviously both only being about a season. His first spell a season, his second one half a season. And no one will ever forget his infamous dive. Obviously the English after Euro 96, calling the Germans all divers. And then he scores a fantastic goal and just slides along the ground in this great diving motion. It was absolutely brilliant. And I think people often actually, obviously not Spurs fans, but people underrate how good of a striker he actually was. Because he was at Spurs 94, 95, scored 21 goals in 41 matches. More goals than Forlán ever scored for United.
And again, not saying an awful lot really, but
in 97, 98, he scored 9 in 15 to really sort of propel Tottenham, I think, under Christian Gross, up the table because they had been in real trouble at the start of that season. So it's, I think Tottenham fans and I think English football fans in general, kind of a wry smile comes to mind when you think of Jurgen Klinsmann, except when he was linked with the England manager's job after Euro 2016. But I think the less we talk about that, the better. So Josh, mate, on to your next cult hero in the Premiership.
Okay, well, I'm moving away from Manchester United to another United with Newcastle. Faustino Asprilla probably is a name that rings a lot of bells, fond bells, with many of the Magpies. Arrived at Newcastle in the what I can describe it as a uniquely fashioned fur coat in February 1996. But let's not forget that Newcastle weren't as they are now. For anyone that knows anything about the 95-96 season or remembers the 95-96 season knows that Newcastle were, for most of the season, leading the way, really. They were, I believe, 12 points clear at one point, or it might even have been more. And Asprilla was brought in to try and boost that lead. I know the gap was closing just slightly when he joined. And, well, simply put, unlike Jurgen Klinsmann, who was as much of an impact signing as you can get, went straight in and helped Spurs rise above the league. Asprilla is often actually cited as one of the players that prevented Newcastle from winning the title that season. And of course, they've never got that close since and probably won't for some time given their current predicament. But of course, Newcastle fans will fondly remember him from those videos that they may have watched or from watching him live, from those backflips and those somersaults he did for celebrations. And he didn't really score tap-ins. He was one for the absolute screamers, a bit like, I guess, Nani, if you're talking about that kind of player. He would just whack them in and they would just be spectacular goals. And even more than that, really, was the hat-trick that he scored against Barcelona. No mean feat, of course, in the Champions League in 1997. In terms of his scoring record, bearing in mind that when Alan Shearer had a lengthy spell on the sidelines with an injury, he was really Newcastle's sole striker, or at least their main striker. 48 games in the Premier League, 9 goals. Not the most exciting of returns. But nevertheless, he's still fondly remembered at St James's Park for being one of their, well, I can't really use it any other term, but cult hero. He is, I would say, the definition of Newcastle's cult hero.
I mean, that Newcastle side, you just couldn't but love them because everything they do, it would be, 4-3 wins, 5-3, 4-2. And I mean, you talk about Asprilla never scoring tap-ins. He wasn't the only one in that team either. You look at Laurent Robert, who came in a little bit later, Nobby Solano, who came in a bit later. They would just score these cracking goals. And you watch, like, if anyone watches on BT Sport or Sky Sports, like the Premiership years, all the screamers in those years, or lots of them, but always seem to come from that Newcastle side. And obviously no one ever forgets Kevin Keegan's "I would love it if we beat them." And I mean, I'm sure as a United fan, you sort of laughing to yourself there, but they were just fantastic to watch, and you can't help but love them.
I think with that Kevin Keegan rant, that was the moment that Fergie and United knew that United had won the title, I think.
Mentally.
It was a psychological battle that Fergie knew he had at that point won. And I guess in some respects it might be unfair to blame Asprilla for that. But even, and I'm sure we'll be referencing it in a future episode, that Newcastle side probably was the best side not to win the Premier League title, having gotten so close. But enough about that. Before we go on to some honourable mentions, Tom, I think you've got one more that you want to bring into play.
Oh yeah, and this guy's a real cult hero. Again, had 2 spells at his club, but we now go off from Tyneside to the Teesside to Middlesbrough and to an exotic Brazilian, Juninho Paulista. A wizard on the ball. And I'm sure any Middlesbrough fans watching will remember all the genius that he would deliver for the club. He had 2 spells in 95 to 97 and in 2002 to 2004 under Brian Robson and Steve McLaren. Scored 12 and 11 goals in each and just was a wizard. There's no other way about it. And the game I remember it most was actually the FA Cup semi-final against Chesterfield. They were this close to getting knocked out. But it would just be people like Ravanelli, Juninho, this really exotic side playing on Teesside with Middlesbrough, basically just skilling themselves out of trouble. And ironically, it was obviously the year his first spell ended, Middlesbrough actually got relegated. And Juninho sort of was so desperate to stay, but couldn't bring himself to sort of be playing in the Championship. But he had an amazing left foot, right foot. I think he was a set-piece merchant as well. And again, just another player that whenever anyone thinks of him, just brings a smile to your face, and a sort of, the Prem wouldn't be the same without his influence at the sort of bottom or lower end of the league.
I think it's a credit to Juninho that I believe Middlesbrough signed him 3 times. I think the first time was in 96, 97, I think it was that season. Then again around the early 2000s. And I think again a couple of years after that. So again, you obviously know that a player like Juninho is so well loved, not just by the players, but also by the board, that they brought him in 3 times.
I mean, he was just one where I think he was the sort of first really exotic player to join a team that wasn't in the sort of top 7 or 8 of the Prem. Because I mean, people can cite Zola, Vialli, and people at Chelsea, but Middlesbrough really didn't have the resources that even Chelsea did at that time. And it was just so alien to a Middlesbrough side that was used to sort of Route 1, 4-4-2 football. It was absolutely brilliant.
Well, I think that is probably enough about Juninho, as wonderful as he was. But we're going to just quickly run off some more honourable mentions that we probably didn't quite warrant talking about in detail, but nevertheless still are worthy of a mention. So, Tom, over to you. Who else would you list in your maybe top 5, top 6 Premier League cult heroes?
So for me, and these are both actually ex-Chelsea, John Obi Mikel, for one.
Oh, God.
Joe Cole, I mean, we'll be coming to him on a future video, but he was absolutely magical. Damien Duff at 3 Premiership clubs, possibly 4. But those would be sort of my closer to home cult heroes.
Yeah.
And yourself, Josh?
Well, sticking with United for a second, Jiesing Park without question. I'm not going to say the chant that United fans love to say about him, because I don't want this channel to get shut down in its first week. But yeah, Jiesing Park, what's not been said about that guy that isn't true? He wasn't our best ever player, and by no means wouldn't make probably our top 2 or 3 all-time 11s. But he gave us some absolutely top draw moments, always turned it on against Arsenal. Another one away from United, Nicholas Bentner. Probably not just a Premier League cult hero, but a world cult hero. Everyone just loves him. I know he's obviously gone to prison, but it's because he was so bad that people love him for it. And he's just great, and he was just a character. And then finally, Leeds United's Tony Yeboah. I mean, let's not forget those wonder strikes that he scored, I believe in the 94-95 season. And he got the sleeves rolled up, just wallops them into the goal. So yeah, Tony Yeboah there, rounding off my honourable mentions. So I think that probably does actually round off us talking about our cult heroes. I think, Tom, you on the Twitterverse had a couple of people tweet you about who they would list as their cult hero. So who of the public cited?
So the public really were into Klinsmann, but I also had a fantastic one, and I forgot exactly where it was. It was an amazing picture that I'm just getting up again, which really showed me one of those sort of iconic Prem images. I'm trying to figure where it is now. I'm just opening my Twitter feed. Where was it now?
Well, while it's loading, have you got any other ones that you would perhaps put in, apart from the Chelsea ones? Anyone else that you would want to put in that list?
I think someone like Sylvain Distin.
Oh,
he was just,
that's a bit left field.
He was just always there. He was just. I never knew always who he played for. He'd just always be there for Everton, you know. Sylvain Distin. I mean, and I have a few. Danny Mills, obviously. Okay. I know he made an English sort of World Cup squad, so maybe that's a bit harsh. I think again, Man City would would really like him.
Well, of course, we've got Paolo Wanchop and Sean Gota. The more I think about it, actually, they're not so much cult heroes as just all-time Man City legends, which perhaps says more about them than it does the players. But anyway, so have you got it up now? Is it already?
So I've got some public cult heroes. The first one was a fantastic image of Jimmy Bullard.
With the celebration. Yeah.
And that was genius, I thought. Matt Letizia, but I actually think he's too good to be honest.
I agree with that. Letizia was one of those players, a bit like the Harry Kanes, and the Alan Shearers, really, that his loyalty really ruined his chances of achieving.
If I'm not wrong, I think Ferguson wanted to sign Letizia.
I'm sure. He wouldn't want to.
But who wouldn't? You're right. And he stayed at Southampton again. And then we obviously had about 4 or 5 Jurgen Klinsmanns.
Well, obviously a very popular choice. So I think that does round off our opening episode of our regular Saturday show, the Retro Premier League show. So stay tuned on our Twitter page because we'll be rolling out another poll for you to vote on who we'll be talking about on next week's show. And until next week's show, or if you fancy tuning into tomorrow's episode of Unpopular Opinions, thanks for watching.